Shabbat Shalom, everybody. In today's Torah portion, there really are two separate stories being described. Both are different ways that the Israelites communicated with each other, and in one case, with God. The first is where we are reminded that God led the Israelites through the wilderness, telling them when to move, where to go, and when to stay in one place. God used the signs of nature to communicate with Israelites, a cloud by day, a fire by night. In both cases, the tabernacle was covered with a sign that told the Israelites what to do next. The second story is about how the leaders of the Israelites used trumpets to communicate with the people. There were two silver trumpets that were blown differently depending on what they hoped to communicate. Two were blown if the whole community was to gather, one if only the chiefs. Each tribe had its own sound. One can tell from how the trumpet was blown if it was a time of war or a festival. In effect, the trumpets had a language of their own. The people understood that language and responded appropriately. In both cases, the communication was coming in a form that was recognizable by the people. They understood what the communication meant and how to respond to it. So easy to say and so hard to do. This reminded me of a story of Chelm. Thank you to Mark Young for finding this version of the story for me. Now, Chelm, for those of you who don't know about it, is a folktale location. It's a city that existed in the folktale world that was a place where the strangest things happened, where people understood everything in the most ridiculous kind of way. And in effect, it is a town that makes fun of the world and ourselves. So in this particular story, this is an abbreviated version of it because some of them are rather long. But in this particular story, in Chelm, there was a real problem with fires. And really not with fires, but with putting them out. It took so much energy and time for the people to go get their pails, go to the river, get their water, and put out the fire. They called a town meeting and decided to send Shlomi, the scientist, to Warsaw, the big city where the smart people live, where everything was done the way it was supposed to be, to see how they put out fires. When Shlomi arrived in Warsaw, he started to walk around the city. While wandering about, he came upon a strange high tower encircled by a balcony. On the balcony was a man wearing a metal helmet, standing about doing what looked like nothing. The scientist of Chelm stopped a resident of Warsaw and said, "Why is that man standing up there doing nothing?" "Why, he's protecting the city from fires," was the reply. But before he could turn around and say, "How did that work?" the man was gone. For everybody except for this one man on the tower moved so quickly throughout Warsaw, so busy doing so many things, it was hard to catch any of them to ask any questions. So Shlomi decided to do what one needed to do, which is climb the tower to ask the man himself. When he got to the top of the balcony, he said to the man, "How do you protect the city from fires?" The man replied, "Well, I can see all of Warsaw from up here on this balcony. I watch all day long, and the moment I catch sight of the fire, I begin pounding on the kettle drum." "And then what?" Shlomi asked. "That is what I came from Chelm to discover." The man replied, "When I beat this kettle drum, then and there the people of Warsaw know there is a fire, and we can put it out." Shlomi gasped in amazement and exclaimed, "Imagine you beat a kettle drum here and the fire goes out there. Truly an unusual kettle drum. Sell it to me." The man replied, "Well, we need it here." Shlomi countered. After much discussion, the man decided to sell Shlomi the kettle drum for 100 gold coins. Back on Chelm with the kettle drum, Shlomi explained excitedly to the townspeople there, "No more pails, no more buckets, no more running to the river for water. Every time a fire breaks out, all we have to do is beat this kettle drum. At last, all our problems are solved." The people cheered. So in the very center of town, they erected a tall tower encircled by a balcony, put Shlomi on it to stand there day in and day out watching for fires. Some weeks later, standing high in the tower, Shlomi spied a thick black cloud of smoke rising to the sky. He seized the sticks and beat the kettle drum. The whole town came running to watch the kettle drum put out the fire. The harder Shlomi drummed, the hotter the fire burned. He drummed so hard he nearly split the drum. But another house took fire and began to burn. Finally, the people did what they always did. They seized their buckets and ran to the river and got water and finally managed to extinguish the flames. The people in Warsaw and the people in Chelm heard the same bell, literally the same bell. The difference was in Warsaw, the ringing of the bell told them to get buckets and put out the fire. In Chelm, the ringing of the bell told them to come and stand and watch their houses burn. Hearing a sign and interpreting it is a whole different matter. The Israelites, unlike the people of Chelm, understood what the signs meant. They knew when to move and when to stay still. They understood when to hurry to protect their community with bows and arrows and when to protect it with sacrifices. They knew because they had been taught and because they chose to agree on the same outcomes for the same communication. In today's world, when we are all receiving our news from very different forms of communication, we are not all hearing the same thing. Just in the last couple of weeks, some of our nation saw a majority of demonstrators march peacefully. Others saw businesses burned to the ground and merchandise looted. Some saw one man murdered, while others saw another African American murdered. Some saw the exception to the rules, while others saw the rule. We're all reacting to the same information, but interpreting and understanding the signs so differently, it is hard to imagine how we will be able to move forward together as a whole country. The Israelites understood at this moment in Numbers. There are other moments when they sound more like us, but that's a different drash for a different time. In this moment, they understood they had to create a means of communicating with everyone that allowed everyone to receive the same message, and more importantly, interpret that message the same. Long before George Floyd was murdered, long before COVID-19, we as a country had stopped interpreting the signs in a similar way. We have stopped talking to each other in a civil manner about what the signs could mean. We have stopped acting like the people of Warsaw and looking more and more like the people of Chelm, waiting for the kettle bell to put the fire out. Forgetting that in Warsaw, the fire is put out because the people jump to action together when the bell is rung. May we find the ability to communicate with each other about what we are seeing before all our houses burn to the ground.